Hello, everybody, and welcome to my chapter story from the Donuts of the Business textbook for QCAA. We're looking at Unit 3, Topic 1, which is competitive markets, and the full chapter is business diversification. the the little chapters, chapter 3 and chapter 4, are domestic and global expansion and competitive strategies, human resources, and finance. Starting from the top right, the blue section of the donut, in this domestic and global expansion stage, you're going to focus on planning for growth, but particularly the Anzoff matrix. Off the top of my head, I know that the Anzoff matrix focuses on the best case scenario for a business, and that would be diversification. So on the Anzoff matrix, a new product in a new market, that's what diversification is. And that's the golden star that you'll be looking for to try and create as you recommend strategies and whatnot in your exam. Equally, you can also horizontally and vertically grow within your domestic or global market, and that would be by developing the product, which usually means innovation, or you can be developing your market, which probably requires a fair bit of marketing. And penetration is very much old product, old market, but trying to get into further into that market, that would be market penetration. Whereas new product, old market, that would be product development, and old market, no, old market, new product, that would be product development. So yeah, anyway, Anzoff matrix, that's a key one when you're planning for growth. Consider Coca-Cola, that's probably the pinnacle of the Anzoff matrix. They diversify, they enter different markets, they develop their product, they develop their market, they develop their product and their market. And when they're not doing that, they're advertising really well. So the pin-up company for the growth within this maturity stage is Coca-Cola. Going around the donut, you're looking at new markets in the domestic and global expansion stage. Just a reminder of the domestic market and the global market situation. You're probably looking at a business that has saturated its market in terms of the domestic one and is definitely looking to access something overseas. So looking into global markets, but with that comes the risks, and you know that that's a big factor in our Unit 3 diversification. Going along, you can see onto the blue expansion strategies. Understanding expansion strategies is great because in anything within the business domain, within our business situation that we're in, and our exam particularly, the expansion strategies are things that you need to either evaluate, but also you need to be able to suggest, because you're probably, any solution that we're finding, you're going to evaluate and suggest a new strategy. So niche markets, innovation, research and development, new and emerging technologies, exporting, vertical and horizontal growth. These are all strategies that you need to be aware of and up your sleeve so that you can suggest them during your exam. Research and development is a big one, but also understanding how much big companies are actually putting into their research and development procedures. That is a big thing that you need to realistically consider and understand when it is in the maturity stage. Going along to the modes of entry, you can see that that whole yellow part of the donut is hearted because, as I said, likely story is that in the domestic market you have faced stiff competition and you're all stealing from each other as a business, so therefore entering overseas is probably your best deal. You can do that by outsourcing or offshoring. Make sure you know the difference. You can introduce sales subsidiaries like Nike, how it owns Converse and Jordans. That's a sales subsidiary. Or you can look at strategic alliances like the Qantas and Emirates alliance, accessing further into the markets, other markets that you wouldn't otherwise. You can look at licensing, which is a classic one for franchises and McDonald's, for example, or you can use international agents. Understanding that there's different modes of entries is a key part of your you demonstrating your knowledge in this maturity stage. Finally, risk management, the PPR model, plan, prevent, respond and recover. That can be applied in this situation, but making sure that you're planning and having contingencies for all your plans within this stage is important as a manager. Fiedler's contingency model is somewhat important, but more the fact that I found it interesting that the leaders, the least desirable colleague test and how high or low you rate them is definitely a part of you being a situational leader, being a good one or a bad one. That's up to you. But so just to recap, the most important ones of chapter 3, it's always going to be your strategies. You've got to know what your strategies are that you suggest are the best for your business in any given time. You also got to know that international is a priority, so you're going to have to be looking for other modes of entry other than just simply exporting. You're going to be looking for offshoring, outsourcing, all the way down to on the ground agents or subsidiaries. And other than that, the hands-off matrix is standing out to me. So in your plans for growth, you got to really separate and align your resources to either develop your product or develop your market, or do both, and that's the golden star. That's the diversification. In chapter 4, we've got a different focus. It's now competitive strategies, and as I said before, strategies are super important. They're pretty much your reference, but also your analysis and your evaluation based is on competitive strategies. And we know that in the mature stage, it's super competitive, particularly in your domestic market. So understanding that in our stage of the business, the development and maintenance stage of the employment cycle is a focus. You need to understand onboarding, what that means for staff, what are some strategies to retain and maintain staff and improve staff performance, because your employees are your currency at this point. And if you're in a competitive environment, it just means that if you fail to look after your own employees, they'll become other companies, your competition's employees. Therefore, on that basis as well, your understanding of Hertzberg's two-factor theory of motivation, as well as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and Locke's goal-setting, Seligman's positive psychology model, these are all potential theories that you can lend from and refer to as solid theories of motivation that you can apply to your employees as a manager, making sure that your human resources is up to scratch. And similar vein, but just more in the business function of human resources, you can look to retain staff, become an employer of choice, encourage diverse workforces and foster entrepreneurship, and have different leadership styles at different times. Your understanding of people and how to become an employer of choice and what benefits you get out of diverse workforces is something that you'll need to reach into, because your answer might be in just simply human resource strategies when it comes to any issues or developing and expanding, continue to expand. Looking further around the donut, you've got the managing finances in maturity in red. The main risk or challenge in this stage, in this expansion strategy, is the exchange rates, and you got to understand how to hedge in terms of the fixing a rate that your currency is trading at, making sure that you can fix a rate, and so hedge your risk and cater for your risk across currencies that can actually be a bit more volatile than you'd suspect. So that's the main risk going international. Currency risk. So financing strategies, as I said in class, this is a super important one. You need to know private equity, going public, money in capital markets, and dividends. These are strategies that hopefully the cases will indicate that you're currently doing this or that strategy. But if not, you need to have these strategies up your sleeve. So you need to know, how can I access venture capitalists? What will I actually get and benefit? What would be the best reason for me to go public right now? Because I'm giving up ownership, I'm giving up future future profits because I'm allowing these investors to now go in and take portions of my company, which could make a ton of money later. So weighing up the cash flow, understanding that it is a bit tight, very tight in terms of margins in the competitive strategies, and then trying to work your way forward. Dividends and money in capital markets, you need to understand that as well. Environmental factors. I only highlighted this because the power interest grid is introduced this year. It's early. It's a bit early for this to be introduced from previous years of business curriculum. However, you do need to understand the benefit of the power interest grid. My Klepper is making changes, not sure, is my way to remember that from the bottom left. So you monitor low power, low interest stakeholders. Klepper is you keep informed the high interest, low power stakeholders. Up the top right, you've got my Klepper is making changes. So you've got to monitor closely high power and high interest stakeholders, and then the top left, low interest, high power, you need to keep informed. So you don't need to worry too much about them. In any case, you got to cue your management styles and your communication styles and your relationship with the public based off a power interest grid, or you can always just do a SWOT, which hopefully the test will tell you which one you have to do, whether that's a SWOT or a PIG, power interest grid. The evaluating of financing options, I haven't hearted, but it is important. You should know that everyone's trying to be ethical and sustainable in their accounting. People are trying to be efficient and effective in what they do. The cost-benefit analysis just tells you whether a project was good or not, a stakeholder satisfaction and competitiveness. Look, those are just the evaluation criteria you evaluate everything on, so financing is the same thing. So just to recap the competitive strategies, the main ones I would particularly stress and bolster my knowledge around is the development stage and the maintenance stage of the employment cycle. I would stress that having knowledge of the hygiene and the motivation factors of Hertzberg and also Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and to understand how you're dealing and how you can lead your organization. That'll help you with human resource strategies, and that'll make you become an employer of choice when employee benefits and employee incentives are now growing and now an expectation. You need to be competing in that HR space. Biggest risk overseas is the financial risk, so understand hedging and exchange rates. Make sure you have financing strategies up your sleeve. Otherwise, you'll have nothing to tell me to do. So understand the benefits and the differences in private equity, going public, money in capital markets and dividends, and don't forget to know and memorize the power interest grid. What is each section and what are we trying to achieve in the business diversification stage in the maturity. So after all of that, I've probably spoken a lot, except I'll now give you a wheel paragraph for business diversification. So what is business diversification? I'll explain it, I'll give an example, and I'll link it to business diversification. So business diversification is the gold standard of what we're trying to achieve when we are expanding as a mature company or business. What it entails is a business tries to develop not just their product but also their market. So they're trying to get a new product into a new market based off research and intel that is really good and specific for that market, and therefore it informs a certain way of product introduction but also a certain market that you're trying to target. The example for this is commonly Starbucks. Starbucks as a licensing or a franchising brand in America, although they did research, they found only cultural and socio-cultural likeness in Australia. They did not actually find industrial or coffee specific socio-cultural trends in Australia, and therefore they came across and they failed to expand as rapidly and freely as they would like to. So within the business diversification, diversity is not just the key focus here. You've also got to research and develop your strategy plan and have contingency plans, which is what Starbucks has done. And yeah, and then that way you'll actually achieve your business diversification goals in the maturity stage. Now I can go and do the same again for competitive markets, domestic and global expansion, competitive strategies, HR, finance. I feel like I covered competitive markets and domestic and global expansion a little bit, but all I'm going to say there, not in a wheel paragraph, is that consider every case study, every business that we know about to be in a competitive market, and therefore consider the market saturated and full, particularly domestically, and then therefore the access to overseas markets, either for production or for on-selling, exporting, or for strategic alliances to gain further new markets and penetration. That would be my point that I would make about competitive markets and domestic and global expansion. Competitive strategies, HR and finance, that's a different story. The HR stuff I have gone through in the previous slides, but essentially maintenance and development are the stages of focus for HR, and you're definitely trying to motivate your business, your company, and be an employer of choice where people enjoy coming to work and have not just their base salaries provided for, not just the hygiene factors or the low sort of shelter, food, water payment sort of things in the Maslow's language, but that you want them to actually have esteem and have progression and have also these benefits that are really good and rewarding. Finance wise, make sure you know how and where the next money is coming from, whether that's public offerings or whether that's from private equity, particularly knowing and splitting those differences and how that the management of the money, how the access to that money changes also the management situation and your ownership situation. Last little tip for me is the form, environments, and PPM filters is what I call them. If ever you're trying to write about anything from the exam or about competitive markets, make sure that you just filter your answer through form, finance, operations, human resources, and marketing to get a fuller picture and a full explanation and a full analysis and evaluation of whatever you're talking about. Or you can do that with the environments as well. So MEX, managers, employees, culture, structure, CIS, customers, suppliers, competitors, or your steeple factors for particularly going overseas. Filter your answers through that. You'll get a more detailed and a sharper response. Or if you want to feel a little bit more personable, you can do people, profit, and market, because that's how people think and might be a bit punchy to you and punchier to you for you to use during your exam, and a bit more personable. Alrighty, so I think that is it from me. I hope that you got the basics and you got some more clarity and that you're ready to punch this exam in the face. Good luck.